Hi everybody, my name is Natalie Williams and I'm doing a video today based on this new company I just started working for called SHIPT. And the reason why I wanted to do a video today is because I've been doing SHIPT for the last 14 days and I felt this was a perfect time to talk about it since on the app it shows your first 14 days, it records your first 14 days of experience. Of course it's daily and there's an overall, but I wanted to specifically pinpoint on the first 14 days. I have not seen one video on YouTube that talks about what it really is like in the very beginning. So I felt the need to make this video to help out newcomers who are contemplating whether they want to, do SHIPT or not, if it's going to be something that is going to be beneficial to them, and if it's like feasible to, do it. So I'll give a little background about why I chose to do SHIPT. So basically right now I'm part-time at two different jobs. I work for a regional bank and I also work for a regional grocery store. And somehow I have factored in doing SHIPT as well. One of the reasons that I decided to add SHIPT as another way to make money is because at my bank job, I definitely get 20 hours per week I'm scheduled. And then at the grocery store, I do have an availability that is at least, I would say 16 plus hours per week. And I've had some weeks with my second part-time job where I'm not getting many hours. And the lowest amount of hours I got recently was like under 6 hours. So the time that I had started, it left me a lot of availability during that week to start adding SHIPT on. I added SHIPT on probably the mid of September. I had, like early September, I had applied. I finished up the interview about September 10th, and then after the background check, it took about 10 days or so, I was contacted via text message. So upon being contacted, I decided that I wanted to start in October, which October 1st started on a Monday. From what I've heard, that's when the pay period starts, is on Monday, so it made more sense to get a full week in. So I'll first talk about what my first week was like. So they say discard the receipts, but I've been keeping the receipts just for personal reasons, and also to record any information that I have done that I may be useful or not useful in the future. But I really wanted, what I record on the receipts is on the front of it. I'm not going to show you in the video because I just want to keep some things that are personal. So it basically shows the items that the customer had got on the receipt, and on the top I write in a red pen the total miles that I did that day. So my first day, which was Monday, October 1st, I basically combined October 1st and October 2nd in together because my husband did not work that evening. He was off 2 days in a row, and the mileage that was on the car was recorded manually. Now, SHIPT does have some partnership with something called Avalanche, but since I got that on my app, it hasn't really been recording really that well, not to me. So I find it a little bit better to record it manually yourself. So generally how I normally record it is when I get in my vehicle for the day, I normally jot down the mileage that it's on, and I feel it's more accurate because let's say you're going to a customer's home and you get a little bit lost, you want those miles put in because it's still pertaining to the delivery. If you are not familiar with the grocery store you're going to, you want to make sure that those miles, and if you get a little lost, are recorded. So I find manually recording it is best for me. You just got to remember to put start to finish. So my first 2 days, I'm gonna say my first 2 days. My first day in particular, I picked up 3 orders. I limited myself to only a couple of zones because it was my first day and I didn't want to go too far out of what I don't know. So I kept the zone closest to my home, and then the next zone was, I live close to the downtown area, so I also added that in. So my first experience was in the morning. It was a delivery, I believe, that had to be delivered, I believe, the 10 to 11 slot. So what that meant is that I should be at the grocery store, at least by 9 o'clock. So upon my first delivery, I actually, the grocery store that I work for is public, so it felt familiar because I work in this particular location. At the time, my job didn't know that I started working with SHIPT, and I felt like rather than avoid the store I work in, they might as well know I work for SHIPT, and if it ends up being an issue, I'd rather them tell me now rather than later. So, of course, one of the customer service managers was like, I didn't know you worked for SHIPT. And I was like, yeah, I just started today. And that's kind of letting them know in a passive-aggressive way that, you guys are not giving me hours, so I've picked up employment elsewhere, and this is what I'll be doing when I'm not working here or at the bank. So the first order was rather small, so it was a good starting point. It was only a total of 5 items. There was another item, but they were out of it, or the store didn't carry it. So my first experience was that I arrived there, I don't remember exactly the time, but I arrived obviously before 10. I tried to get gas before, but I had trouble with that. That's a whole nother story. But I knew what grocery store I needed to go to because it's the one I work at. And as soon as I got to the location, I texted the customer that I was there. So upon texting the customer, I started shopping, and I don't recall her wanting to add anything on additionally to her order. So that was good because I wouldn't even know what to do because it's my first shipped order. So as I shopped around, the first item that I go and get, they're out of stock. So I'm like, oh, here we go. So I end up texting her, letting her know that they were out of stock of the coffee. I end up just proceeding on to the next thing. I think the next thing they were out of that as well. So I'm just like, wow, this is turning into be a pretty bad first shipped order. I texted her about that being out of, and then I moved on to the next order. Didn't really know my store that well because I do shop there, but I only shop for things that I normally buy. So it felt, even though it was a familiar store, it felt different because how things were grouped on the app were not necessarily how they should be grouped, if that makes any sense. The customer was really communicative. She, texted me back, and I gave her some suggestions on what they did have. She had questions, so that brought me back to that aisle. There was another item that she had wanted. They didn't have that particular flavor, so she ended up saying never mind on that item. And in terms of her first item that she had wanted, she ended up just getting a different flavor. So that was easy. I just removed that item and put in a new one. And the other item, I think she ended up just saying, never mind on that. So, when you're doing shipped, sometimes, they don't have items. Like if you're picking up an order and it gives you a range of how much you will get paid for the order, you got to always think on the lower end or less, because if you get to the store and they don't have it, then the order price goes down automatically. So that means you get paid less. If you suggest substitutions, the substitutions could be more or less. Like I said, the customer may not want it at all. So that lowers the value of the order. So in terms of that can be a little bit, disheartening. So for this particular order, it ended up being $34.07. which is really low. But it was a good experience to understand that, you know, as a first order, it shouldn't be a large order for me. It should be something fairly easy. And actually, her delivery window I only had 2 delivery windows that I was willing to do before I had to get to my job at noon. Not to mention that I had problems with my data on my phone, which I end up rectifying later on down the line. But the first order went rather well. The lady, one thing that I had noticed is that because she lived in an apartment community, on the SHIPT app, they don't give you the apartment number. So when you arrive, you kind of got to text the customer, where are you? You know, what they don't give me what building you're in. The directions was really easy. I utilized Google Maps. Google Maps works pretty well most of the time. So you should also text the customer once you have processed the order and paid for it. Let them know you're on your way. So they have a time frame to know how long you'll show up. So they'll be ready for you. But once I got there, like I said, I didn't know what apartment that she lived in, so I had to text her and find out what apartment was. Come to find out, where I parked, her building was right behind me. I didn't know that. I pulled out and then I looked and I was like, oh, there's another parking spot, and it was right there. So she allowed me into her apartment. She did have a dog, but it was a tiny dog. I'm not scared of animals, and generally I feel like, you know, if you are scared of animals, this wouldn't be a good job for you, because a lot of customers will have animals. And she had a little dog that was barking at me, but you know how some little dogs, their bark is louder than their bite, you know. But the dog didn't bite me or anything, but that's just the same. So the dog, you know, came out and kind of sniffed me. Most animals do like me, so I'm never really too fearful of them. And they're normally very friendly towards me, so was nervous about that. She did give me a $5 cash tip, so I was like, oh, this is pretty good. This has turned out to be good. Her delivery window, I wasn't late. I delivered it mid of it, like 10:30 by that point, because I left Publix, it shows on the receipt, around 10:12, like I said, I got there maybe 30 minutes before 10, so I should have gave myself more time, and maybe I would have delivered it sooner. But like I said, I was trying to get gas before and ran into trouble with my local gas station near me that I've never used before, and that made me feel like, nope, I'm not going to use this gas station. I'm going to do what I normally do, even though it takes me out of my way. So I was lucky on my first order to arrive on time, because it was a small order. I was lucky to also get, you know, a $5 cash tip. I've not spent the money. Actually, what I've done is take the receipt and staple the money to the back of it, because for tax purposes, I don't know how it's going to be and how my tax filing is going to be. So I'm not spending any of the cash tips as of yet. That's my way of keeping track of what I got as a cash tip and what I didn't. If I don't have a cash tip attached to it, or I don't have an online tip, this is my way of monitoring how I'm receiving all my funds and my money. So that was my first order. I end up getting to my bank job early. I asked my telecoordinator if I can, you know, work earlier. She did, because I knew I had another order that I was sent, I believe for later in the day. I had another one to pick up. So by me leaving a half an hour earlier that day, it allowed me to leave earlier so I can, you know, shop earlier after work. And wherever I was going to, I would get there sooner. So my video is sounding a little long-winded, but I have like about a minute or so left. A lot of my videos I do in parts, so if I've gained your interest, I guess you would, you know, come back for the other parts of it. But I'll get into my second shop order next. All right.